hi guys. It looks like I got interrupted in the middle of my last video and it ended without me knowing, so I sat there talking to myself for about another 7 minutes. Either way, I'm going to pick up where I think the first video left off. We were in the middle of translating the reading passage of Vila Scalesta, which is on your study guide is the first half of the reading passage on the midterm. So I'll just go over the first part again, just to pick up. So we have, in the city there was a beautiful house. The house, however, was empty because there was a ghost was living there. All the citizens were very afraid, Walde Temabant, of the ghost. Umbram. Athenodorus ad urbum venit et de umbra audivit. Athenodorus, capitalized because it's a name, ad urbum venit, comes to the city, et de umbra audivit, and heard about the ghost. Athenodorus tamen umbras non temebat, quod erat pihalosipus, which is, Athenodorus, however, was not afraid, non temebat, of ghosts, umbras, quod erat pihalosipus, which means because he was a philosopher. Vilam igitor emit. Emit is the verb here. You notice how there's no nominative singular noun. And so we'll go to the last subject that we had, which was Athenodorus. And so therefore, igitor, he bought the house. Vilam. Okay. Postquam nox venit. After night came, Athenodorus in atrio sedabat. Athenodorus was sitting in the atrium. Subito pihalosipus fragorum audivit. Suddenly the philosopher heard, and we have fragorum, which is down here, a noise. Respexit et umbram horribilum vidit. He looked back and saw a horrible ghost. Umbra erat senex et multas catenas. Oh, and that actually gets cut off a little early. Should be catenas garabat, and that means the ghost was an old man et multas catenas garabat, and he was wearing many chains. So that's the reading passage. That's the first half of it. The questions are based off that and the other 6 sentences that make up the end of that story, which is a ghost story. Very fun. Okay, so we have the rest of this, which if this next part is all about verbs. This table is very similar to the table that you guys got in your stage 7 notes. So I'm going to fill it in. We have our present tense, and I want you to use forms of the verb conspicit, which means to catch a sight of. I got interrupted again during the middle of that, but I didn't keep talking for too long, so that's good. Either way, so we're doing the present tense here. We got conspicit, which means catch a sight of, and these are the that's the present tense. When I give you a verb, it's typically going to start out in the present tense. So we have our 2 forms that we know. Well, we actually know 4 forms of the perfect tense. We know conspicit and conspiciunt. Conspicit means he catches sight of. Conspiciunt means they catch sight of. And I'm going to kind of do 2 things in one here. Since it's present tense, we also know how to say I catch sight of and you catch sight of. And you remember the endings for the present tense are ost and unt that we know. So to say I catch sight of, it'll be conspicio, and for you catch sight of, it'll be conspicis. Okay. And the 4 endings that we know, once again, this is kind of redundant here, I understand that, but you have O, which means I'm doing something, S, which means you are doing something. We have T. All right, so we have he, she, it, if it ends in T, or a nominative singular noun. And then we have it ends with nt if they are doing it, or it's a nominative plural noun. And these are all the subjects. The translation for this would be catches sight of, or is catching sight of, or does catch sight of, or do catch sight of. Those are all acceptable translations of the present tense. All right, so now we have the imperfect tense, which we can recognize by the tense indicator ba. Remember ba, the imperfect sheep. You'll see it between the beginning. You'll see kind of sandwiched there in the middle of the verb. So with conspicit, if you make it imperfect, you have to sandwich that ba in there. It turns into conspiciebat. And the other form we know is conspicie, bont. Okay. The two endings we know for the imperfect tense are bot and bont. And these basically mean conspicie bot means he was doing something. Conspicie bont means they were doing something. So I'll add those in here. He, she, it. Nominative. I'll make this shorter. Nominative singular noun. And bont, they were doing something, or a nominative plural noun. Okay. And the translations that are acceptable for the imperfect tense, the most common one is was or were. Xing. You could also say used to X. You could also say kept on Xing. Alright. Perfect tense. This is the one that gives us the most trouble. We know that in the place of the BA for the imperfect, for the perfect, most of the time we'll see a V there, but we could also see an X, an S, a double S, a U, or an initial vowel change, kind of like fecit. Fecit is the main example that we know. There are a couple of others. And sometimes the perfect tense looks very similar to the present tense. Really, the best way to know perfect tense forms is to study your vocab, and it'll be the second form given to you. You'll be given the present, then the perfect form. So we take conspicit, we look back at our stage 7 vocab, we look at that second form, and we see that instead of a V, the tense indicator for conspicit is actually an X, and it turns into conspexit. And that would be conspexit, and we know if it's third person plural, the ending is not just nt, but erunt. So, conspexit and conspexerunt, the endings are it and erunt. On top of recognizing the tense indicators like V, X, S, double S, or U, if you see an erunt as the ending of a verb, that is the other way to know for sure that it is perfect tense. And the two ways that we know how to translate the perfect tense are has or have, or I'm sorry, let's try it again. What you think of when you think of past tense. For catch side of, you think of caught side of. Caught side of. You can also say has or have caught side of. Really don't like the word sight, apparently. You could also say did catch sight of. And any of those three forms are acceptable translations of the perfect tense verbs in Latin. Okay. So down here, the next part says to translate the following verbs in the proper tense and supply the subject as indicated by the ending. I'm going to go through these somewhat quickly. It starts out with the different forms of sum, est, and sunt, which are very common and very important to remember. These are all the different forms of to be, which are also irregular in English. And the only way to know these in Latin is to study them. So sum means I am, est means you are. These are all present tense. Est means he, she, it is. And sunt means they are. Could also be nominative nouns for those. Erat is the irregular imperfect form of est, and it means he was. Erant is the imperfect form of sunt, meaning they were. Alright, so we look at sedo here. That is a form of sits, and it ends with o, so we know that I am doing it. So this means I sit. Sedis means you sit, and this should be, you have a typo on your study guide apparently, this should be sedes, not sedis. Alright, and sedent means they sit. And those are all present tense. Coquis means you cook. Coquebat means he was cooking. Coxerunt, see that X and the errant ending in there means they cooked. Windebant means they were selling. Windit means he sells. For short, could be she or it or a nominative singular noun. Window means I sell. Facio means I make or I do. Faciebat means he was making or doing. And fecit means he made. Alright. Now we're moving on to nouns. And we talk about this English sentence word order. Remember, English, this is all your stage 8 notes. In English, word order matters to figure out who the subject is of the sentence is and who the direct object of the sentence is. Typically, English goes subject, verb, object. Like Billy punches Johnny. One of these days, Johnny will take revenge. Alright, subject, doing the action, the verb, or the action, is punches, and the thing receiving the action, your direct object, is Johnny. Okay. Okay. In Latin, they don't care about word order. They just care about cases, noun endings, and nominative nouns in Latin are the subjects. All right. And in Latin, accusative nouns, or nouns with accusative endings, are your direct objects. They're the ones receiving the action. All right, so I'm going to fill these in right here. This is all basically taken straight from your stage 1 notes. First declension nouns. A is the nominative singular. AM is the accusative singular. Plural, nominative plural is AE, and accusative plural is AS. All right, I'm running out of time before the bell rings, so I'm going to go quickly through this. You can just follow along. For the second declension, most of the time, US ending is nominative plural, but sometimes you'll see an R, like the word puer. Accusative singular, OS, accusative plural, and an I, like fungus, fungi, is the nominative plural. Third declension, this can be anything, as we've talked about. X, O, S, IS, whatever. Whatever doesn't fit in the other ones, we'll probably go there. But the rest of it's pretty easy. It's denoted by an E. You see ES, EM, EM. And then the plurals are both the same. So we're going to take these words down here, and we're going to break them down into nominative singular, nominative plural, accusative singular, and accusative plural forms. You can see it's pretty easy. You just take that accusative form, or, well, don't even worry about it. I'll just do this real quick. And you just follow along. Second declension, keep E. You can tell a noun's declension by its, typically its accusative ending if it's given to you, or the nominative singular ending. Third declension is very tricky for this. Said, I'm just going to do this quickly. So thief here would be the nominative form, and that's just fur. And we have the verb buys. The subject is singular, so it would just be emit. And then we have slaves, which is plural in the direct object, so we need the accusative plural form, which of servus is servos. Since it's second declension, you'll have an OS ending. Here we got servus, was punching, imperfect form. Was punching, that'd be pulsabat, since it's a singular subject. And then the thief, now we take fur, and we make it third declension accusative singular, since it's receiving the action. Servus pulsabat furem. Then we have the slave girl told the stories. That's Ankila, is slave girl, and she's the subject, so we'll do the nominative singular ending of the first declension. Told, narawit, it's perfect tense, singular subject. And the stories, we take the word fabula, and we give it the accusative plural form, since it's the thing being told in its plural, be fabulas. And then lastly, the stories, in this case, are plural, but they're nominative since they're the subject of the sentence. We say were, which will be errant, and excellent, we'll say optimi. Don't worry why this is optimi. Typically, it'll just kind of absorb the ending of whatever it's describing, in this case, stories. That is your study guide, part 1 and part 2. I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions for me, please let me know. You can message me on It's Learning or come to me before school. Good luck.